movie looks sick.
What is it?
Bad Taste.
Whoa, who directed it?
Peter Jackson.
Lord of the Rings guy?
Yeah, I thought he only made 3 movies.
No, dude, he made 6 movies.
Oh, he made The Hobbits?
Yeah.
Bro, we should definitely watch this.
Yeah, for sure. It's probably like a prequel or something.
Let's go.
What the f?
Today, in Fuego covers 1987's cult classic horror comedy, Bad Taste.
Written and directed by Peter Jackson, Bad Taste is his directorial debut. The film stars Peter Jackson, Pete O'Hearn, Mike Minnitt, Terry Potter, and Craig Smith.
It was produced by Peter Jackson, with cinematography by Peter Jackson.
Bad Taste is a 92-minute blend of horror, comedy, sci-fi, and action.
The film follows a ragtag group of alien hunters who get called in after the disappearance of a small New Zealand town.
Bad Taste follows Barry, Frank, Ozzy, and Derek, who are trying to rescue Giles the tax collector from the evil grips of Lord Crumb.
Lord Crumb is an intergalactic fast food salesman who's trying to harvest humans for a new exotic source of meat. But this film is so much more than that. This film is an absolute passion project, let me tell you. I mean, it looks cheap, because it is cheap, but the artistry and the dedication that went into this it's unmatched. He made the impossible happen with trapdoor heads, rolling up way too much grass, and buying up all the butcher scraps. I mean, it just screams dedication.
For sure. Just to prove the dedication, Peter and some coworkers and friends from school spent 4 years making this film. Peter Jackson himself put $11,000 into it. And I don't know, man, just to show the cast dedication, one of the cast members died 23 times in different disguises. It's beautiful. I mean, it's so unique, it's upsetting.
Yeah, and especially how famous Peter Jackson is and how not famous this movie is, it's almost absurd.
Yeah, the world doesn't want this to get out. They want it in a bubble.
Yeah, it's the definition of a cult classic.
My biggest flaw with Bad Taste is how Peter Jackson decided to propel the story in certain scenarios of the movie. One example in particular is when Lord Crumb is at the top of the stairs and he's telling all his alien henchmen like the rundown, all the story behind the fast food chain and how they're killing people and using them for food, and it just feels a bit forced. It feels like, oh, we had all this fun, now we gotta do something with the story. Yeah. And if it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. There's literally a scene where he just starts listing off things they're gonna use the humans for. It was meant to be like a 15-minute short, and it turned into like an entire feature. But it still doesn't like excuse the fact that it's not paced the best, and it's kind of just like whatever cool ideas these guys thought of, they just threw into a movie. Which gives it that heart that we were talking about earlier, but it still just kind of subtracts from like the overall film experience because at the end of the day, it feels a little hollow, just in story's perspective.
It just feels thrown together.
Yeah, and so it's kind of a double-edged sword there, because like on one hand, like it's good that it's thrown together. It feels like you're in your backyard with friends shooting a home movie.
Yeah.
But on the other edge, it's like, oh, this is a professional film.
You can see glimmers of like disorganization in it, and it just it brings it down from like being perfect. That's all I see.
I would agree.
In bad taste, every scare is followed up with a laugh. The practical effects were specially crafted to look scary, but also to match the ridiculous tone of the movie. First they will show a scary alien, and then they will show his peachy cheeks as it runs out of frame.
Get these bodies on board the ship.
On the surface, this film seems like an average B-horror movie, but even before the end of the first act, you can tell it's anything but. If you remove all of the amazing practical effects, the cheesy, lovable acting, and the many levels of satire, Jackson's keen eye for direction shines through.
This film is classified as a horror movie, but it has characteristics of many other genres. Frequently blending sci-fi, action, and comedy into the horror movie gave Peter and his crew the ability to mash their favorite tropes from movies into one project. The result still shocks and excites audiences today.
That's one less.
This film draws inspiration from almost every genre of film, taking aspects from each and combining them in a fresh and organic way. It's written like a comedy, it's a horror movie tonally, and it's shot like an action movie. It's truly all you need on a Saturday night.
Derek! Bastard! Jesus! He's gone apeshit!
We're all aware of the gore in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the campy effects in Evil Dead, and even the famous head explosion from Scanners. But bad taste is rarely mentioned when discussing special effects within the horror genre. With bad taste, you get the gore, the campiness, and the head explosion, but you actually get to see the brains hit the ground. The alien design itself screams, "I am a B movie and I'm proud of it." The masks were made in the most classic style possible, by creating a mold out of plaster and pouring in foam latex. What's so impressive about this is that Jackson accomplished these effects by himself along with a little help from his friends. There are two special effects I really want to dive into though. The first of which is the head double in the scene where Robert pukes up green goo. Jackson made a double for his own head by getting a bowl full of alginate powder and submerging his head into the bowl for 1 minute. The mold was then dried and hair and paint were added to give it a more real look. From there, he needed the puppet mold to be able to puke up liquid and look fairly realistic doing so. To achieve this, he made a small incision in the back of the head and fed a funnel through the hole and out the mouth. The hardest special effect of all was the blasting off of the local colonial homestead where he filmed the third act of the movie. Unfortunately, the homestead is historically significant to the city, so he wasn't able to launch missiles at it or send it into space. In order to effectively accomplish this pipe dream of a script, he needed to build 3 replicas of the house, all varying in size. They built the first model in a location with a similar backdrop as the house, and the finished product stood 5 meters high. Then they had to capture a missile launching at the corner of the house and its explosion on impact. The corner that was destroyed was designed in a way that it could be easily rebuilt, which enabled them to get multiple takes. To ensure the trajectory of the missile, they attached fishing line from the rocket launcher to the point of impact. After many attempts to perfect the explosion, they got the money shot. The boys couldn't lift the 5-meter model off of the ground, so this is when the second miniature was utilized. Using forced perspective, they used a 1-meter square as a base for the model and built a road to match the sizing of the world around it. The model was then filled with lights and smoke machines to imitate the blast-off, and cranes were used to lift the house into the air. It took many attempts to get the right amount of smoke, but eventually they found the sweet spot. They couldn't stop there though. They had to show the house flying through space. It was time for Jackson and his boys to go back to the lab and create the final miniature, which ended up being about the size of a cardboard box. From there, all they needed to finish the film were some green screen shots of the house floating through space. Upon the film's release, it screened at the 1988 Cannes Film Festival and sold to 10 countries in 6 days. 4 years after the film's inception, their hard work finally paid off.
Although the special effects are undoubtedly the most important part of this film, I have a few things I'd like to add, namely Jackson's ability to shoot an action sequence. There are countless moments in this film where you find yourself on the edge of your seat. He uses seamless quick cuts and high-octane tracking shots to keep you in the action. His use of blocking and how he arranged every shot lets the viewer take in and appreciate the insanity playing out in front of them. The direction in this film is just a vehicle for the exceptional practical effects, but I think the most interesting thing about it is the way that Jackson and his crew managed to capture so many different types of shots. From the booms to the rack focuses, there is a lot of influence taken from classic cinema. Jackson accredits a lot of his influence to Ray Harryhausen, who did special effects in such notable pictures as Clash of the Titans in 1981 and The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. Both of these films rely heavily on stop-motion animation, and is where Jackson says he found his love for practical effects. Switching gears, I'd like to talk about the effectiveness of Jackson's joke writing. He employs a very simple form of joke telling on paper. Setup, and then a punchline. But it's the way it's acted and edited that brings the laughter off the paper. For how cheesy and out there the acting is, it's also done extraordinarily well. You can tell that the style of acting was very intentional. Jackson used the actors he had and fit them into a cohesive story. One scene in particular is where Robert's hanging off the cliff, and he's puffing his cheeks out and groaning. Most people would see this and say it's hack acting, although, on a deeper look, it's so absurd that it becomes normal. This film lulls you into a suspended state of disbelief, making each subsequent joke funnier and funnier. It's hard to say with words why the acting works. You just need to watch it to fully understand. Alright, so now it's time for at least my favorite part of the videos, the ratings. So here in Fuego, we like to give everything 2 ratings. We give a fan rating and we give it a critic rating. And the fan rating is just how you feel about the movie. I mean, what it makes you feel like. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad, just what it says about you.
Yeah. Be honest. What do you think? Let's go.
You ready?
Oh, yeah.
3, 2, 1. It's a fan 20.
Oh, yeah.
This film is a romp and a riot.
An absolute 20. And let's just get right into the critic rating. A critic rating, you forget every bias, you know? Do the exact opposite of the fan rating and just, what do you honestly think the film gets?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Alrighty. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's a critic 16. This movie it's not great. It's great, but it's not perfect.
Yeah.
We introduced this list in our last movie review. We are ranking every movie we've reviewed from best to worst. I know some of you astute viewers out there can see that Bad Taste tied with Razorback, but we talked about it and decided that Bad Taste gets the edge.
Alright everybody, that's the movie review. If you liked, like and subscribe. Tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops to join the FEMA family.
This has been an Fuego Films production, designed specifically for you!